everyone to another one-day community event. My name is Stephanie Melodia, and I am a recovering founder and now podcaster, public speaker, and very proudly a one-day mentor here with the program. And it is my pleasure to be sat down here with Deepak Shrivastava. I hope I got his name right again there. I'm getting the thumbs up from Deepak on the screen, so that makes me feel good. Deepak is an experienced founder operator with a strong background in technology, early stage growth, and investment banking. With a proven track record of multiple company acquisitions and successful venture backed exits, his expertise spans diverse sectors, including enterprise SaaS, travel, hospitality, financial sponsors, consumer goods, and healthcare medical devices. Currently, Deepak is the founder and CEO of Sunrise AI, a VC-backed startup providing AI-powered analytics solutions for enterprise customer success teams. Incubated at Palo Alto-based venture studio AI Fund, he leads a team of AI engineers, researchers, marketers, and designers to help develop and launch cutting-edge AI solutions. Deepak, welcome to this one-day event.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you. And I know that that was quite a mouthful with your intro there, but to our listeners, honestly, that was a fraction. That was a tip of the iceberg on everything that Deepak has accomplished. We won't go through everything today, so we're going to try and just get the juicy stuff out of Deepak today. I've been told that no question is off limits, so that makes me very excited as an interviewer, and that's also a message to all of you on the audience as well. There will be an audience Q&A towards the end, so pop your questions in the chat. Honestly, if I were you, I would use and abuse this opportunity to ask Deepak anything that you like. He said that nothing is off the table, so let's put that to the test. Deepak, I'm going to start off lightly. Let's go back to the beginning. Talk us through your first business, Porter and Sale, was it called?
Correct.
So talk us through your leap, because you were in corporate consulting, very different world. Talk us through what gave you the idea, what gave you the confidence, how you leaped into entrepreneurship, how you built up Porter and Sale, and then crucially, how you exited a few years later too. So let's dive in.
Yeah, no, happy to, and thank you for everyone that's joining and even just hearing my story. It means a lot. I did start my first business. I had a co-founder. The name of the business was Porter and Sale. That goes back about a decade ago. But to give some context, I think it is important to recognize that I feel like I had my first lifetime as a different person, quite frankly. And my identity as an entrepreneur, I still think of it as fairly recent, even though it started in 2014. But before then, for the dozen years prior, I had an opportunity to do consulting out of college for about a year. That feels more like a blip, to be honest, Stephanie, but I did about a decade of investment banking afterwards. And it was an intellectually challenging job, allowed me to leave the bubble of New York where I grew up to places like LA, San Francisco, Hong Kong, where I spent the bulk of my time. And I worked in a very sexy industry. We were doing investment banking coverage for casino and gaming and hotel companies. So all the stuff that was going on in Asia at the time and the buildup of Macau and other gaming hubs like Singapore was my mainstay, and it was super fun. But I came to a realization that I was living a very prescribed life. You know, I come from an immigrant family. The prescription was to study hard, work hard, get a good job. And I felt like I had achieved that, not necessarily for myself, but just to check the box. And I knew I needed to do something else. And that's kind of when I quit cold turkey, moved back to the States, took up a role where I was really lucky to be one of the early folks at Dropbox. And this goes back to 2012, 2013. And that's where I got my feet wet. I saw firsthand how it was to build a company, grow a company from scratch, and had an opportunity to wear multiple different hats. And it was invigorating, exciting. And I knew from there, like, hey, I need to go do this. And I knew at some point I would leave Dropbox to start my own company. And that's what happened with Porter and Sale in 2014. You
Okay.
would ask what drove me to do it. I do want to dive into one thing. I felt like I had a safety net, right? And I was an older entrepreneur at that point in my mid 30s. And I had a little bit of a nest egg, um, but I think most importantly, I had freedom, right? And what I mean by that is that I was a bachelor. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a partner. I was only answerable to myself. And I had projected out forward. I knew I did want to, at some point, quote unquote, settle down, have a family, all that. And I knew now would be the time to sort of launch into something entrepreneurial, whatever that
Mm.
is.
Amazing. So, loads of stuff that I would love to dive into there. I just want to rewind to a particular comment you made, which was you quitting cold turkey and making that leap. What was it that gave you the confidence? What were the observations that you made during your days in the early days at Dropbox that made you feel like I could do this?
Yeah, yeah. I think there was sort of two things that I found. One is that I realized that while I had studied engineering in undergrad, but I was so removed from coding. I had not written a piece of code at that point in like 12, 15 years. So I recognized that one could still start a company, a technology-based company, without needing to be a technical co-founder. So that was one big realization. I saw others on their path to success that were more commercially oriented or had a similar-ish background to me. The second thing was, I had a bunch of different roles at Dropbox, but one of the biggest roles and most successful roles I had was helping to start the B2B sales team. So at some point, the company really started focusing on selling Dropbox and cloud storage to large enterprises. And I was part of the initial go-to market team. And I had some early successes selling into big box media companies like the New York Times, Spotify, a lot of marketing agencies, News Corp, NBC Universal came out of our office. So it was a great product market fit for the enterprise product in terms of large companies, particularly media companies. And I realized that for every dollar of ACV I was bringing in, annual contract value, and these contracts were $1 million plus, folks on the other side of the table, and who I mean by that are the venture capitalists that were financing Dropbox at the time, were marking up their Dropbox positions by 10x. So every dollar I brought in, they got $10 of value just because the value of the company increased by that much. And I thought to myself, like, maybe I am on the wrong side of the table. So as I started digging into other potential career paths of what the next evolution of what I wanted to do would be, was looking perhaps maybe something on the buy side, being a venture capitalist. It sort of rhymes with my investment banking and finance experience. But then I really saw and wanted to be an operator. I really enjoyed building something versus being an agent, right? Being a financier. So I dived headfirst into something entrepreneurial when an opportunity came up where my old co-founder was starting the business in hospitality, a space that I was familiar with from my investment banking days, in technology, another space that rhymes with what I was without what I was doing at Dropbox. And I just sort of just jumped into the deep end of the pool, and it was fun.
Love that. Love that. So just a quick clarification there. You mentioned your old co-founder. How did you meet, sorry, initially for Porter and Sale?
We had met through a mutual friend. Initially there were three co-founders. One of the co-founders was a friend from college that we had residually kept in touch with, and they were looking for someone with sort of my expertise with finance plus kind of go-to market experience, and it was a great fit, and hence
Yeah,
I
interesting.
joined.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly sense check on that one because I'm always interested also in hearing how co-founders meet each other. Often they meet at university or they've worked together. So those are some other, privileges is the circles that you do move in. They can help set you up for success too. So that's why I was a bit curious. I also just need to double click into your comments there around the VCs winning the game on the other side of the table. Do you have any hot takes on that? Because I think in this day and age, there's a lot more there's a lot more feelings about the VC kind of model at the moment. What's your kind of take on that, given you're a VC backed founder at the moment as well?
Yeah, I am a VC-backed founder, and I think if you ask any VC-backed founder, if there's a way to build what you're building without taking external capital, that's always, I think, the preferred path. This is my third venture now, and for a multitude of reasons, which we can get into, why pursuing VC capital could be interesting. But there's also, I think, a lot more reasons why one shouldn't, as a founder or an entrepreneur, take venture capital, let alone any external capital at all. I think there's so many different ways to start and grow a scale a business now that there isn't necessarily the same parameters that any founder is really privy to that requires the use of VC capital.
Mm.
But I do think venture capitalists provide value in the sense of not only capital, but if you think about the hundreds upon hundreds of investments they've made, the founders they've profiled and gotten to know, the companies they've been a part of the journey, there is a level of pattern matching that they have. They do have an interesting vantage point where if you know how to engage with the venture capitalist and have them or have an ability to create the right relationship when they're on your cap table, it could be quite fruitful and constructive in terms of growing your
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. So pros and cons, very diplomatic answer there, Deepak. We didn't get any kind of controversial hot takes, but that is completely fine. I would just like to clarify for the listeners, just in case, very early stage entrepreneurs are not already aware. So either your business is self-funded or bootstrapped. You can either that's from your own savings, or if you're revenue generating, you've got some profit, you reinvest that into your business, or if you take external capital, which is a fancy way of saying someone else's money, then that can take the form of a bank loan, a government grant, or investment, which will come from professional investors like VC, venture capitalists, angels who are high net worth individuals, or private equity, which is much more for kind of advanced established business. So a very quick kind of glossary overview there, if that helped anyone. All right, so Deepak, let's get back into the timeline. So you've taken the leap. So we're back at that point where you've gone cold turkey from Dropbox, as you worded it. You had that self-belief, that confidence. You saw what it sort of took to build that business up off the ground at Dropbox. You knew that the life stage was right for you as well before you settled down. So let's kind of fast track. Like, what were the main growth levers that worked for you to build Porter and Sale, and then let's kind of edge our way towards your first exit. So the middle and end bit of Porter and Sale.
Yeah, no, happy to go into it. It took us a while to find a growth lever, right? Like the initial concept was, hey, let's build an amazing mobile application for travelers. And then we wanted to monetize. And we knew from the get-go that perhaps going the B2B route, getting larger contracts could be a way to best or most efficiently commercialize, right? Instead of me selling you an app that had, and again, think about this from the lens of 2013, 2014, when apps were really burgeoning, especially travel. Me convincing you, Stephanie, to subscribe to our app with cool things and to do and places to go for 99 cents a year, that's a much harder battle to get a million of you guys versus, hey, let me get 5, 6, 7 contracts from larger companies that may be interested in this product. So from the get-go, we definitely oriented ourselves towards B2B. Now, I will say, though, we had a lot of difficulty. We made a lot of classic mistakes, tons of mistakes. One of the mistakes that we made was really building for 1 or 2 customers first, and then trying to refit and retool to help productize and scale it out to other customers. The second thing is we started building before we got contracts as well. We
Mm.
had some interest, some LOI, which promised payment, but we really were taking a huge bet, and we didn't have the capital to go build a full-fledged app, get the editorial, right? It was really capital intensive, which required us to get external capital or take other people's money so we could fund the development of the product. And I will go back to your previous question for a hot second. There is a huge con from taking money from other people because whether you like it or not, your company is no longer exclusively yours, right? The decision-making power may be retained by you, but you are now answerable to others, right? You are a steward of their dollars, and it's only fair and appropriate that those folks are going to be concerned about how good of a steward you are. And now your time gets split between being answerable, engaging with those outside investors, answering their questions, being available when they want to talk if you're a good kind of investor relations person. But that is time away from your business, right? It's a missed opportunity. Every time, every minute, every hour you're not spending on your business, you are actually losing out on the potential growth that you could be pushing forward. So it is a double-edged sword by every mean. Now, going back to our story with our initial customers, the product worked. It was a beautiful mobile app. No one wanted to buy it. What really helped, and I think about this quite often in retrospect, what really helped us get off the ground is when we made an opportunistic acquisition. So this is a bit unconventional, but we had a competitor that was based in Canada. They had a tangential product where they were more an upsell platform. They had a web-based, think of it as an email marketing tool that enabled hotels to get in touch with their guests that were set to arrive 3 days, a day, a week, 2 weeks in advance. And they start marketing services like, hey, upgrade your room for a discount, or extend your stay for a discount, or hey, set up a spa appointment. All these various upsell opportunities, this company was able to sort of push. And hotels love this product because it essentially extracted additional revenue from each guest. We had an opportunity, they were going down, it was mismanaged. We had an opportunity to acquire them for pennies on the dollar. So we did. And that really helped transform our business because we leveraged their tool to get into the hotels. And then we saw an opportunity to upsell our initial legacy core product with the mobile app. And then that's when things started clicking and we were able to grow and expand into multiple hotels.
It's so interesting. So, Deepak, at this point in time, how many of you are there in the team? Yourself, your
Hmm.
co-founder, anyone else?
Oh yeah, no, we had a CTO, we had a couple engineers, I mean, we were overbloated. Again, another classic mistake. We
Mm.
overhired, right? We had account managers, we had a salesperson that there was no reason for us to hire. Founders as us the onus should have been on us. And then it became a very horrible cycle, right? And what I'm invirtuous cycle. What I mean by that is we took on way more staff than we needed. So now we had payroll and a burn that was really hard to support. So then I was caught up in, all right, I need to keep going back to investors for more and more capital.
Yeah.
Now, every time I kept going back for more and more capital, great, we're getting investment, we can sell the story, we're showing growth. But then I'm then again going back to a missed opportunity. I'm spending less time on sale. I'm spending less time on managing the team, and I'm spending more and more of my time going out for capital raises just to make sure we can pay the bills and keep the lights on. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I spent less time actually pushing the business forward, but
Mhm.
because I wasn't pushing the business forward, we weren't growing as fast. Our burn was still high. So because our burn was still high, I had to keep raising money. So I was caught up in this very negative cycle.
Yeah, and it just makes you feel like you're being backed more and more up against the wall, right? The reason I ask, though, how many of you there were in the team at this point with making that acquisition of that Canadian
Oh,
company is
uh-huh.
because I, I'm not surprised to hear that you were actually overbloated at this point in time because for me also as a founder, I don't, but hand on heart, like being completely honest, I don't think I would have even had the headspace to even consider making an acquisition or leveraging that as a growth strategy, especially given that it's my first business as well, which it was for you too. So I guess I imagine that that came from your finance, investment background, having enough of a team to kind of think in that way. Was there anything else that sort of allowed you to spot that as an opportunity and make that acquisition?
Yeah, their portfolio of customers, right? So and they were also there was a recurring revenue affiliated with their product that was very attractive and appealing to us, right? So it actually alleviated some of the burden in terms of my need for additional capital raising. So it brought down our burn.
Sorry, just to clarify. So the benefits to it sound amazing. You know, you acquired it for pennies on the dollar, as you phrased it. They've got customers. But I guess before the acquisition, having the idea to acquire a different business when you're building your own one and then coming across the right opportunity, like,
Yeah.
did that come to you? Were you out there hunting for it? Like, it's just such a rare
Great.
story.
Yeah, we were not actively hunting for it. It was an opportunity I wasn't averse to because, yes, 100% because of my experience as an investment banker, having done M&A transactions before, I was very comfortable and very well versed in terms of, okay, is this worth it? Is this not? If we're going to do something, how do we negotiate it? How do we structure it? those things kind of came second nature to me, and totally because of the benefit of my previous career.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a bet though, because it takes time. It takes a couple months, right, to get through a transaction. And that's when it's at warp speed. And it
Mm.
was a bet in the sense that, okay, I can spend 2 months of my time really focusing on this, but there's a binary outcome. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's all for naught. And then
Yeah.
that's time, capital lost, potential new customers that we're acquiring lost. So it
Yeah.
was a bet. Thankfully, we came out on the right side of the bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully. I'm just still really curious just to stick with this one for a sec because it's just I don't think I've ever met anyone. I've never come across the startup that's at that early stage to acquire another business. Usually it is this huge conglomerate that goes around swallowing up the little guys, right? So how if you went hunting for it, how did this deal come onto the table for you?
So, interestingly enough, we were going for a venture capital round a few months prior, or actually a year prior to this acquisition.
Right.
Uh, and we actually had come close with one of their investors, where they were going to finance us. They were pretty blunt in the sense like, hey, actually, we see a pseudo competitor of yours in Canada. We're actually making the decision to invest in them, not you. So it was disappointing, but that's what put that company on the radar for me. So I
Exactly.
sort of always residually followed them.
Yeah.
Now, um, uninvited, I got an email from their founder saying, "Hey, they're in a process to sell the company." And look, those processes, especially from startups, if they're going out trying to sell the company, it typically means that maybe things are not going that well.
Yeah.
And um, long story short, I engaged. I wanted to understand. I was curious more to understand what things went wrong and what things should we not be doing. So
Yeah.
it was more a diligence for what are the things that what path should we follow and what things or pitfalls we should avoid. But as that conversation progressed, I saw opportunities to actually have the synergies, acquire their customers. And it sounds brutal, but we were able to, with our own staff, not really take on their staff. So
Yeah.
we could have the benefit of those contracts that they had, the customers that they had, the product that they built and spend multiples of millions of dollars on. And literally, like I said, we acquired them for, I'm happy to share, $300,000. Meanwhile, they had
Wow.
raised 4, 5, 7 million bucks in total, right? So if you think about it, someone spent $7 million building something, a business, getting contracts, getting customers,
Yeah.
and you have an opportunity to acquire the 300. I was like, look, we'll be able to extract at least 300K of value here. So
That
we should do it.
is wild. That is absolutely wild. Throwing some free fries on the side. So I'm also just curious as well here. Why did you decide to get rid of their team and keep hold of yours when it's
Mm,
their customers and their contracts that you want to hire? Because surely if there's a
yeah.
relationship, some history there, and that's going to make up the bulk of the new business now, wouldn't it
Yeah.
make more sense to bring those over with you?
I do believe that's conventional wisdom, Stephanie. You're not incorrect by any means. But I think there are two things that we had going for us. My co-founder and I were both very commercially oriented. So we had the confidence that we could service these contracts and build the relationships with the customers that we acquired in a very constructive way. So said more bluntly, we were full on with ourselves in the sense that we could do a better job than they could.
Right.
And that was so part of the diligence process was interviewing some of their customers, right? And based on those conversations, it was very evident that they were not necessarily happy campers. So two conclusions. One is
Mm,
there's going to be natural churn because the company is being handed over. But
mm.
number two, there's also likely an opportunity for us to build something here as well. So,
Yeah, yeah, amazing. So interesting. All right, so let's move the conversation along a little bit. I don't want to stick too much with this
oh, it
quasi
is all.
this startup M&A machine, but it is just so incredibly rare to come across this kind of situation. So you really interesting that actually your growth strategy was nothing to do with Google ads or using Facebook. It was actually acquiring another business, a pseudo competitor, pennies on the dollar, getting a really great deal, leveraging your strength as a founder, your previous career expertise as well. So that all makes complete sense. So now let's start kind of accelerating towards the exit. So when did that start to become, when did the idea of selling the business go up in the agenda? When did you start that process? Why? What surprised you about it all? Let's kind of touch on the exit story.
Yeah, so we actually started a large partnership with let's just say the largest hospitality company in the world, one of the biggest hotel chains based here in the US. And that partnership worked out really well, where our product was evangelized in a lot of their properties, and it was doing very well. This is when we raised more capital. We increased the team size to about 30, 40 people. We had multiple folks on contract. We had sales outposts outside of New York, Montreal, where the previous company that we had acquired was based. Rome, London, Singapore. So things were going well. We were growing. And you're right, we did not, and for better or for worse, we never played sort of the ad game. We weren't in performance marketing. It was sort of classic roll up your sleeves, direct sales. And that very much matched with the luxury hotels that we were canvassing to. That's the style. Like they're not necessarily answering a random cold email. Like they need that sort of white glove service. So it kind of it really rang true with our sales and outbound effort. But based on that partnership that we had with that large hotel company, we started thinking, or we were approached by, hey, do you guys want to get acquired? Long story short, that put into our heads like, okay, maybe it's time. And at this point, we were operating the business for a good 4 or 5 years. So it's 2019 now. And we didn't come to the right price. We actually had an opportunity from an outside investor, a corporate venture capital company, that was giving us triple the valuation, and wanted to put in additional capital. And look, if I had known what COVID was going to be, and no one could call that in 2019, the right answer would have been that we should have taken the deal and monetized. And I could have said, "Hey, I
Make
sold
the
my first
deal.
company to the largest hospitality firm in the world," right?
Wow.
But we didn't. We went with a Series A. We raised capital, and but that always put into our heads like, "Huh, maybe that exit opportunity does exist, but
Right.
let's organically grow the company." Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, COVID hit, and because we were an upsell platform and our business was predicated on upselling to guests at hotels, when hotels no longer had guests come March 2020, you can imagine what happened to our business, and that's when things really went south for us, right? And it was a tough break, but we actually did do a fire sale. It's hard to characterize it as anything else, and obviously happy to go into what that process looks like, but it was a great ride where we teetered at first, found our groove, started growing, raised capital. COVID hit, and we really had to reimagine a lot of things, as you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, what a ride, Deepak. And I think just given the audience of early stage entrepreneurs, I mean, unless any of you want the details, I think we can skim through kind of the ins and outs of the exit. 'Cause I think the guys here are maybe a few years off from doing that, as much as I would love to hear. But I think just taking a quick pause there at this point in the story, just how, what a wild ride, right? And like not having the crystal ball to know that COVID was around the corner. What does that what does that do to you on an emotional kind of level? How has that shaped like the way that you view things, given that like we never know what's around the corner? Are you now, does that change your way of thinking at all?
It's dramatically changed my way of thinking. I think, and unfortunately, I think a lot of founders are privy to this, especially if you're a first-time founder. Your identity is tied to what you do, right? And that's a lot of career, like high-powered careers, like folks that are ambitious tie their role in their career to their identity. And me as a founder, a quote unquote successful founder, or being seen as one, was very much tied to my identity at that time. And when things went south and we thought we were going to go bankrupt. I mean, I'll just give you a quick example to convey how dire the situation was. It was March 9th and 2020, and we called up that's when things started shutting down. We had about 2,000 hotels. We called them up. I think it was like a marathon session between my co-founder and I. And only two customers agreed to renew their contracts and agreed that they would pay their invoices this month. So literally overnight, all it felt like 6 years worth of hard work was crumbling. I can laugh about it and like speak about it now without like crying, quite frankly, right? Uh, but it was you can imagine what a gut punch that was, right? It felt like I was being stabbed, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and as part of that, it's like, okay, well, now what, right? What does that mean? And I think the big thing for me was a realization after the fact, after the exit. We eventually sold to a company that approached us at a much lower price, right, than what the money we had raised. But we're thankful that the company is out there. We buttoned up the story, right? We're thankful for that. And the mobile app, actually, the acquirer was Luxury Escapes, an Australian company that's much larger. But their mobile app has a lot of things that seem to be very similar to what our product was, which is great to know that there's millions of folks out there enjoying the hard work that we had put in and the team put in. But
Mhm.
it was a realization that that experience over 6 7 years is not a singular experience. This is not my identity. There's going to be more at bats. There's going to be more opportunities. They may all be unknown, but there's also a shit ton of learning. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse.
Yeah, for sure. Can
A
bleep
learning
that out in the edit.
there's a lot of learnings that I've had over this last 6 7 years. What can I do with it and move beyond? Like
Mm,
it took a while to realize that and to come to terms with it, but it was
mm,
very sad. It was depressing to know that you spent so much time and you felt like it was great and things were going well. You said no to an opportunity that, quite frankly, could have been life changing for me and my family in terms of wealth creation. Saying no to the
mm,
opportunity and seeing it all come crashing down, like it was extremely jarring, and that's an understatement. But to then divorce myself from that experience and know that, hey, that was just one experience. That's not my identity. That is not what I'm about. There's a lot more that I can do. There's a lot that I've learned. Where do I go from here now? At some point, it became exciting to explore that versus
nice.
dwelling dwelling in the past and moping around.
Yeah, oh, Deepak, that's so human. It's just such a humanizing thing to hear. This entrepreneur who's had this humongous gut punch with this unexpected, this was a black swan event. You were in the wrong place, wrong time, completely out of your control. And then actually, you one of my favorite sayings is you grow through what you go through. And then coming out of that, you say you're not dwelling, but we all need that time to just we need to feel the pain. We need to be in it, as horrible as it is. We need to, again, the only way is through, right? Like you grow through what you go through. You have to go through it. And then the cloud starts to lift, and then you start to realize actually, not only is there something else on the horizon, but actually, could we even possibly entertain that there's something exciting and positive about what's on the horizon? So, with that in mind, very nice segue into the next part of the story. So, gang, I'm just aware that it's coming up to 1:45. So, as a reminder, we've got a Q&A at the end. We've had some questions coming through on the chat, so please keep them coming, and we'll try and answer them for Deepak towards the end. So, Deepak, which one was the next business after Porter and Sale?
So the next business was hotel credits, and again, you'd think I'm crazy to start another travel tech company in the middle of the pandemic, but it truly is like necessity is the mother of invention, right? I'm sitting here just to give you guys and paint the right picture and give you guys a flavor, kind of where my head was at. It's March, April 2020. Our business is completely gone. At that time, what, I had a 2 year old. My wife was in grad school. Bills are piling up. My credit is absolute shit, as you'd imagine. We had to fire 90% of the team. Where we may or may not be doing a sale to a much larger company that gets us some play capital. My investors are like, yeah, this is a zero, it's gone, whatever, right? So I was trying to think through, what do we have? Like, what asset, what value do we have? Like, what am I gonna do? More practically speaking, how am I paying rent next month? Because what's that gonna be look? What's that gonna look like? Because that's a real, like, pressing issue, obviously, right? So we knew that we had a full CRM of thousands of hotels that we worked with. We knew we had hundreds of thousands of subscribers to a travel listserv of travelers from the customers that we had amassed over 6 7 years at that point. So we said, hey, can we come up with a pandemic friendly way to travel? The problem that we were solving was hotels are starving for cash. There's single digit occupancy. What is it that we can do? So overnight, we threw up a Shopify website and essentially launched a glorified version of Groupon for luxury hotels. So heavily discounted gift certificates with elongated expiration dates, no blackout dates. And then they started selling hotcakes because we had the listserv, we had the hotel relationships, and we got to like 1 million in ARR in a couple months. At that point, you can imagine I was so burnt out. 2 travel tech companies through a pandemic, 7, 8 years as an entrepreneur. We took the opportunity to sell the company to a YC competitor, which they've since then shut down and no longer are
How quickly was this? Sorry, how quickly?
Within 8, 9 months, the total timeline.
Wow. So you had this, what was it called? Or Hotel Credits was the name of it. You had that business for 8, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Deepak, that's incredible. And I have to ask you again, I mean, I feel like I know the answer to this, but why did you, again, it does sound a bit, yeah, a bit mad to set up another business in COVID after this whole horrible, excruciating experience. Why didn't you just go and try and get a job? Why did you try and start your own business instead?
No, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know is the right answer. That's the real answer. But if I kind of go back and again, the retrospect here now, 4 or 5 years later almost, right? Like, why didn't I? I think it's 2 practical reasons. One is at that time, like early 2020, the companies didn't know what was going to go on. So there wasn't any active hiring yet, right? Before you saw the Zoom boom, right? Right. But also we just had an immediate need to like do something, right? Like it was me, my co-founder, our CTO, and like a product manager. We were like, what do we do? Oh, we got PPP money, right? That's the money that the US government had given to a lot of small businesses. We were eligible for one because our business was destroyed. So we're like, all right, we have this money. This is as good as seed money. Let's take it. Let's have a go. We got to do something, right? So that's what we did.
And so, sorry, so this was the same co-founders?
Yeah.
From previous. Oh, amazing. So you have the talent, you have some money, almost like seed capital, may as well try and make lemonade from the lemons, right?
Exactly.
Deepak, oh my God. I know that we're running out of time and there's so much more I want to ask you, but at this point I have to ask you, when is the book coming? Because you need
man, no, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I went to engineering school because I hated writing papers. I don't.
You need to get a ghostwriter then because you have got some stories. This is a wild ride.
There's a lot. There's a lot of ups and downs. More downs for sure.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. All right. So it's 10:02. I want to make some time for the questions and the quiz. So I just want to wrap up, Deepak, with touching on company number 3. So we talked all about the kind of the beginning, the early stages, given the audience. So hope that was relevant for all of you. The second business, which was born out of COVID, that was very much the lemonade from lemons, which is an incredible story. So obviously now it's 2024, nearly 25. Of course, you're the founder of an AI business, which I love. So give us the elevator pitch. How are things going with Sunrise? How early are you at the moment? Where are you currently at?
Yeah. So I'll just briefly continue with the timeline. So after the second exit, my wife was from LA. She's like, hey, let's go check out LA. She was pregnant with our second at the time. So we went to LA. We spent the last couple of years there. I had a chance to play mercenary at a few other companies, but really got a chance to spend time at home, play stay-at-home dad, which was a phenomenal experience and probably the hardest job I've ever had.
Wow.
I did get the itch to start another company, and this time, very different formula. I ended up working with the AI Fund, which is based out in Silicon Valley, and they incubate AI companies. And long story short, we came about with this idea around leveraging AI to juice sales functions at large companies. And one of these white spaces that I saw, and there's so much, and there's a shameless plug for a sales and marketing outbound session I'm holding tomorrow. But there's so much software out there that helps enable sales development representatives, account executives in terms of outbound automation and lead gen, but not much to help customer success managers or account managers really manage churn and also upsells. So we leverage AI to plug into the proprietary databases at large companies and then pump out reports and give playbooks to their account managers in terms of what they should be doing. So we're really automating a lot of their workflows, helping them work in triple time. We're early stage right now. We've raised some seed capital from a few venture funds, AI fund included. And it's just my co-founder and I. And we have a few initial cohort of design partners, some folks like OpenTable, Row, which is a neobank, and other large companies. So it's been exciting to kind of work with them. And the biggest difference is that I didn't have anyone write a piece of code until we actually had contracts locked up. So very
Interesting.
different go around in terms of how we're building this company
I
versus.
love that. I love how we're applying these practical lessons with every new venture. And you just see that serial entrepreneurs, they only get better and better. What was I just going to ask? Sorry, I was going to ask you another follow-up question on that. So your early stage, I was just curious as well to just as a follow-on is, are you rolling your sleeves back up again? Are you getting involved in getting those contracts signed? Are you very much in BD given its early stage?
That's exactly where I spent the majority of my time, right?
Yeah,
I'm not spending time trying to fundraise. I'm trying to go get customers, right?
yeah.
Trying to keep the team lean. It's just my co-founder and I, right? So
Okay.
there isn't a need, like we shouldn't be getting ahead of ourselves. And that's what we had done in the first go around for sure.
Okay. And also, is this the same co-founder from the previous ventures or a new one?
Co-founder, different co-founder. No love lost to my previous colleagues at all, but new co-founder, yeah.
Nice, nice. How exciting. Well, Deepak, as much as, not to reopen those old wounds, but as much as it feels as though you're in the wrong place, wrong time with COVID, it feels very much like you're in the right place, right time with, LA, New York, AI, this whole space. So it feels like you're back on top, which is really exciting. Deepak, I could continue very, very easily, but we have got some questions coming in. So David has sent me directly some questions, but I do think they are for you, Deepak. So this one is a great one from David. He's asked, how do you stay motivated in times of struggle? That one's great. Thank you, David.
That's a great question, David.
Yeah.
You know, I another big difference because I no longer tie my identity to what my job is or what my role as an entrepreneur is. The way I fill my cup is through different avenues, right? Like, and the way practically I would recommend anyone doing any job, doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not, is really writing down like your biggest non-negotiables, right? So my non-negotiables are I wake up super early in the morning. I like to get my workout in and I want to cook breakfast for my kids. Like no one stopped. So what does that mean? I'm not taking an 8 a.m. call, right? Because I'm in the middle of breakfast with my kids. So that brings me joy to make sure I do that. And that sets me up for the rest of my day. Same thing. Later today, I want to take my daughter to ballet class. I'm going to do that. I'm going to block off from 4 to 5:30 so I can do that, right? So it's know what your non-negotiables are, know what fulfills your life versus work life. And I don't think it's work-life balance. We got to term it as like work-life joy, right? So like what brings you joy? Like just that you need that. That's what actually fuels motivation. I'm a better worker. If I've done those things, if I check the box on my non-negotiables, I'm way better at work, way more efficient, right?
Yeah, I
That's what keeps
love
the
that.
motivation.
I love that. I feel like a lot of us have had to learn that the hard way, unfortunately. Amazing. Yeah, David, very well summarized there. Priorities, boundaries, expectations. Exactly. Those are all the magic words. We had another question come in earlier from Bucci. Again, Bucci, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly. So do you think that acquiring a loan from a bank is not better than using VC? What other options are better? Have you ever had to take out a bank loan, Deepak?
Yeah, we have, and I'm biased because when the company went down, it was a big issue, right? I think loans can be helpful. It really is a case by case basis. What is your growth? Are you cash flow positive? Are you not? But I put bank loan, venture capital, different ends of the spectrum in terms of external capital taking outside money, but it's still taking outside money, so you're answerable to it. Debt can be dangerous because they'll come and take over your whole company, right? Equity as a venture capital investment, like if you go down, they lose their investment. There isn't an expectation for an immediate payback or recourse necessarily. So I think it depends on the structure, the stage of the business. I know that's a non-answer, but it really, really depends. At an early stage, though, which I'm assuming you may be at, Pucci, I think you have to be comfortable with the fact that if you take out a loan and you cannot pay it back, what repercussions are there? If they take your business assets, if they take your personal assets, like, are you comfortable with that risk? And it really depends on your appetite for that risk. If you are, then yeah, the cost of that capital is much lower than taking venture capital, right? But it really depends on where you're at in life, right?
Deepak, keeping it real as always. I love that. Thank you so much. All right. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So, a few minutes for a quick quiz. So please scan that QR code on screen or tap the link in the chat that I've just posted. And let's go through together because Deepak obviously has the answers. So let's open this up and see what we managed to cover here. All right, so number one, Deepak, the best growth strategy advice. Is it option A, experiment quickly to find paying customers? Is it B, invest as much as you can into paid social? Or is it C, give away as much free pizza as possible? What's the
Do
right
you want me
answer?
to answer that, or is
Yes,
that for everyone else?
everyone else should already have it. So yeah, Deepak, what's the answer?
I mean, pizza is my absolute favorite thing, so it's hard for me not to. But no, but it is experimenting quickly and find paying customers, right? Like that's the 1 day way, and that is the right way. And I'm sad that I didn't have 1 day when I was a first time founder, right?
Right,
That this is
right.
one of the reasons why I think it's such an amazing program.
You took the words right out of my mouth. What an amazing program. I do have to ask you as well, what are your favorite pizza toppings, given pizza's your
Oh,
favorite?
I'm hands down mushrooms. I'm just more.
Oh no, Deepak, it was going so well. Oh.
Are you more of like a pepperoni type of person?
Yeah, well, honestly, anything but mushroom. Like I cannot
Oh
eat,
wow.
I cannot do fungi from the forest floor. That
Oh
is,
wow. I didn't realize you'd have such a disdain for the
I
fungus.
know
Okay.
we had so much, we were becoming such fast friends, Deepak. But that means if we ever get to have pizza, your one is entirely for yourself, and my one is.
Come to New York anytime. I mean, we are the pizza capital, so come to New
All
York anytime.
right. Next quiz question. Biggest lesson from previous exits. Is it A, not to do, but what not to do? Is it to get the biggest valuation possible by listing on the NYSE, or there are no gift shops?
Easily, like it's so much harder to, I think, always figure out what to do, what to do. It's much easier to figure out what not to do, and that then leads you to the right direction. Like, don't do this, don't do this, and you kind of then start going in a direction that actually leads you to what you should be doing. So it's almost like a process of elimination, and I love that it's very much aligned with like the scientific method, going back to module one of the curriculum, right? Like, you make an
Right.
hypothesis and you actually want to run into that spike and invalidate that hypothesis. So you switch direction, right? And the more you do that, the quicker you experiment, you actually start refining and honing into the right direction, which I think is a brilliant way of going about things. And that's what trying to find a business, a new market, a new product, and how well it will do. Like, that's that constant and consistent exercise will get you to the right place.
Absolutely. Well, Deepak, to leave it on that wonderful mic drop moment, thank you so, so much. The time has flown. It's been such a pleasure. I think you already plugged this a little bit earlier, but please scan the QR code on screen here for the next event, which is, oh, hang on, this is a wrong picture. Okay, Deepak,
It's okay.
you plugged your event. What was your event that you talked about?
Oh, it was, I'll tell you exactly the event name. It is, excuse me, yes, integrating AI to streamline B2B lead generation and sales. So if you're out there trying to pitch your product to other companies, how do you go about doing that? Finding the folks to reach out to and then automating that outbound channel. We'll get into some granular and specifics around that tomorrow, leveraging AI to really juice it up so you're not there sending one by one cold emails.
That's amazing. That sounds like a genuinely unmissable event for anyone in B2B leveraging AI. Thank you so much again, Deepak, and to everyone who joined us live here as well. Thank you for anyone listening in to the replay. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, all.
Thanks, everyone.